How's it going? Thanks for joining my channel. I just wanted to come on. It's been a while since I've done a video. Some of my videos, lately I've been putting rap videos up, which I really had a fun time making. But I've been really thinking about those and had some struggles yesterday considering just getting attacked. I believe like for Christians that the devil attacks us when we're doing God's work. Um, but anyways, not to go down that rabbit trail. My channel is all about theology and apologetics, and sometimes talking about issues of our times, culture, politics. Uh, but I do my conversations more organically. I don't really do a ton of preparation. Um, but usually I have some semblance of an idea of what I'm going to start talking about. And I think it's produced some good content. But if you're not into that style of video, you don't have to watch my videos. So, but I'm excited to talk today, even though today I have a little less of a concrete idea of what I'm going to be speaking on. But I hope that God will help me to um, talk about some things that are important. So, lately I've been writing a new book. It's actually, I have a couple manuscripts that I have yet to publish. And my new book, Big American Problems, is coming out within a week or two. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a massive book. It talks about Christianity, its relation to politics, what progress. It examines what progressivism is. It has a lot in dealing with the abortion industry, um, talking about the relationships between today, some things in our culture, and the Tower of Babel, all sorts of just like really fascinating things that fascinated me, and I hope will fascinate the reader. So I hope that when that becomes available, that you will buy that book and support me in that way. And yeah, but the new book that I'm working on is called No. I don't know. It's a working title, but right now I'm calling it No Choice. So it's talking about the abortion industry, and it's going to be a very large book. It's pretty. Right now it's about 60,000 words, and I still have three more chapters to write. So it's really shaping up nicely, and but it's not just talking about abortion the whole time. A lot of it talks about worldview issues, like kind of what is the foundation that has to be laid in order for a society to start to support things like abortion, which would, if you really are thinking consistently about what abortion is, it fits the textbook definition of genocide, which is the systematic killing of a group of people, which unborn babies are human beings from the moment of conception. Biologically, that's a fact. So targeting the life of unborn babies in a systematic and legal way fits the textbook definition of genocide. So what are the foundations that have to be laid in order to do that? And so my yesterday's section that I wrote was talking about those things, which I thought was interesting. So I looked at, and I talk a lot about these things in some other videos, talking about secularism, humanism, Marxism, postmodernism, just a lot of isms. I'm trying to think if there's other ones that I missed. Evolutionary theory, so which is linked to social Darwinism, obviously, and how this web of ideas kind of form a comprehensive religion or worldview for people to operate, and that gives people motivations and purpose and knowledge of truth, even if it is there's truth in lots of what these things teach. Like for example, Marxism teaches that lots of times the rich oppress the poor, which is that's true, right? But there's also in I think each of those areas ways in each of those areas of study, there are places in which they deviate from the truth. So, but basically, a lot of those things pave the foundation and make uh, give people justification for believing in things that when we're brought to an understanding of what they really are, it starts to seem absurd that uh, for me, like thinking about abortion, it's like, how have we gotten to this point? It seems absurd. But then also thinking that, 5 or 6 years ago, I was indifferent about the issue. In fact, if somebody came up to me and asked me if I was pro life or pro choice, I might have said pro life, but if you really probed my answer, I probably would have ended up saying, well, yeah, I agree with the woman's right to choose 100%. It's her body, her choice, right? So I really hadn't thought deeply about the issue, and I think that that's one of the problems uh, with that notion in particular. But this video was not actually. I wanted to start this video to talk about false teachers in the church, and how people are blaspheming the name of God because of televangelists, and I call them name it and claim it preachers who say, who kind of they stand up in front of at the pulpit and they just tell people what God's going to do that for them on that day, or how God's going to richly bless them and everything, which God does richly bless us, right? But it's not as if because a pastor or teacher tells me that God is going to bless me, um, that's going to happen. Like, God's going to make you rich and famous and etc. Right? So I was going to talk about that, but now I'm talking about something else, which I think is good. But I do hope to touch on that issue as well. So what I was saying with all the isms, I'm just going to say that all these different foundational worldviews that can kind of interlink. They provide a web of religion and a mosaic, much like Christianity has a large mosaic with a lot of interconnections and complexities that help us to make sense of it and be able to answer questions. And I happen to think that it's all true, and I know it's true. But in the same way, the secular equivalent of that with Marxism and humanism and postmodernism and evolutionary theory, they all form a similar mosaic, which really helps people to have that kind of understanding. So I just want to breeze through that in a minute or two here and show how that is. Like, so for example, today's Marxism has led to a lot of death and suffering in the last century alone, right? Governments and regimes who have tried to implement Marxism from a top-down level have ended up really oppressing people, killing people, gulags, concentration camps, right? And even now that's happening in communist China, right? They're committing genocide against the Uyghur Muslims. They are performing forced abortions on people. They have the 2-child policy, which it used to be a 1-child policy. So they're systematically slaughtering children against the will of their parents in many cases. So Marxism has a lot of cultural baggage attached to it. So most people that I talk to will not claim that they're Marxists. In fact, I came out of college as a Marxist, and I probably, if somebody asked me if I was a Marxist, I would have said no. Like, my worldview is way more complicated than that. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, basically a Marxist is able to kind of, if you call them out and say, well, you're a Marxist, they're able to say, well, no, I'm actually a secularist. But when it's pointed out that secularism also has led historically to some evils, just like for Christians, oftentimes atheists and secularists will say, what about the Inquisitions? What about the Crusades? What about the Salem witch trials? And we have to realistically deal with those issues, and I think there are really good answers for all three of those issues. But basically, what I'm saying is this mosaic is able to kind of protect people, and it's forming a new comprehensive worldview that I would say is postmodern, because it's kind of an amalgamation of all these different worldviews that have emerged probably within the last 100 years, or 200 years, excuse me, since the emergence of Darwinian evolution. Um, Dr. Stephen Meyer actually has pointed out really brilliantly, I think, that the secular equivalent of a worldview, which I keep saying worldview, but I think that's an important framework for us to distinguish between the way we see reality, right? Um, to make sense of a worldview without God, we have to give ourselves purpose. First, excuse me. So we have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, basically, just like any story. Uh, Beginning would be origin, which Darwinian evolution gave us. The middle would be purpose, which excuse me, which Marx or no Freudian psychology kind of gave us. It gave us the psychological purpose without the need for God, right? And a way to analyze reality and understand it. And I might be a little off on that one, but and Marxism gave us the destination, right? The pushing towards utopia, and then postmodernism, humanism, and the other notions have contributed to these frameworks. And so basically, they're able to shift between people who subscribe to this worldview, and sometimes, like when you're talking to somebody about something like abortion,